Imagine if words were like martial arts moves. Just as a skilled martial artist can deflect an opponent's strike with precision and grace, we can use the right words to navigate challenging conversations and turn conflict into cooperation. Today, we're diving into a book that brilliantly bridges this metaphor called Tung Fu. I'm joined by Sam Holm, who I like to think of as the Mrs. Miyagi of communication. Sam has over 20 years of experience as a communication expert, and her writing has appeared in various publications, such as Business Week, Forbes, and the Huffington Post. Her books include Pop, Create the Perfect Pitch, Title and Tagline for Anything, What's Holding You Back, and Tung Fu. In this episode, we'll explore how to use the superpower of words to think on our feet, diffuse tension, and communicate more effectively in both personal and professional settings. I'll warn you now, you're going to need a pen and some paper because this episode is packed full of practical tips, so you'll want to write them down as you go along. Let's get into it.
From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Dhanda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable. Hey Sam, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we jump into the subject matter, I just want to know which superpower you'd like to bring to this particular episode.
I would like to use the superpower of words to lose and words to use so we can think on our feet and handle really challenging, sensitive situations diplomatically and proactively instead of getting angry or upset or suffering in silence.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. And I came across your work because I had heard you on another podcast. And I just love the title of one of your books, which I ran out and bought, which is called Tung Fu. And I hope we could talk a little bit about some of the content in there and also some of your other great books as well. But first of all, Sam, where are you from? Because I'm loving the outfit, by the way, and I would really love to hear where you're from and a little bit about your background.
Well, right now, I live on a stream trail in Austin, Texas. So got to represent with the hat, right? And so I'm going to keep it short, Patty, because I know is a little bit of context about me and what I'm bringing to the table. And then I really like to focus on real life situations. What are we facing? And we think, I have no idea what to say in that situation. Or we have, I should have said syndrome. Why did I think of that at the time? So 2 minutes about me, and then let's jump into those how-tos. Sound good?
Absolutely. Yes, let's do it.
I was born and raised in Southern California on a horse. And a reporter once said, Sam, where did you get your confidence? Well, I got it on the back of a horse. Even when I was 8 years old, I'd be gone all day on my horse. Get bucked off, figure it out. Bridle breaks, figure it out. And so my entire career as CEO of the Intrigue Agency and the Tung Fu Training Institute is how to figure out what to say when we don't know what to say. Because I think it's a skill. And even if we're a techie and we're brilliant with blueprints, put us in front of a person and all of a sudden we're tongue-tied and tongue-twisted. It is a skill that we can learn, and it is the key to a successful life and career. So my books, everything from Tung Fu, which is selling around the world in 17 languages, 20 years after it was first published, Talking on Eggshells, which the founder of Whole Foods, John Mackey, said is the course correct for today's cancel culture, and Someday is Not a Day in the Week. Pop, which is how to stand out in your crowd. The great joy of my life is to have an opportunity to do meaningful work I love with people I enjoy and respect. So that's a bit about me.
Oh, brilliant. And I hope I don't get tongue-tied, because sometimes when you meet somebody whose work you love and then you get a little bit starstruck. So I apologize if I do, but I'm so happy you're here. And I think it's such a great topic for today's world as well, especially in the kind of gadget culture that we have today. I see my kids just on their phones all the time. And I feel like communication is one of those skills that is overlooked sometimes. So I'm so glad you're still championing this great skill. Let's just talk very quickly about the book. I mean, it's got very practical advice in there. And I'd love to just jump straight in and get some of your scenarios that you would like to talk about, because I certainly find it difficult sometimes in those situations not to know what to say, especially if a leader has asked me something and I'm thinking, do I say this?
Okay, where I would like to start is, unless someone is driving, I hope they grab a piece of paper real quick and they divide it into 3 columns, right? So it's first column and a second column. And at the top of the left-hand column, put situation, because I have actually codified what are the most frequently challenging situations we face. One is we're getting blamed for something that's not our fault. Another is someone's made a mistake and we want to correct them without them getting angry at us. Another is someone says something that's untrue. So we're going to talk about a situation. Now, in the middle, put words to lose. Because Patty, as you know from the Tung Fu book and the Talking on Eggshells book, there are words that actually make things worse. And Elvis Presley said, when things go wrong, don't go with them. All these words make things wrong and they make it worse. Now, in the right-hand column, put words to use. Now, these words can actually prevent resentment and produce rapport. These words can actually turn a conflict into cooperation. So let's talk about the very first column is number 1, what to do if we're disagreeing with someone. Sound good? Put in an argument. As we have a different point of view, it's like we're arguing about something, we're fighting about something. Now, let me give you a quick example of what not to say, and then we'll suggest what to say in that situation. Sound good?
Perfect. Yes, I have to say this is probably one that I could definitely use at home with my wife, but also at work as well. So yeah, let's do it.
Well, I was renting a car recently, and a woman comes up next to me and says to the employee, my name is, and I reserved a Ford minivan. Well, they looked up her records. Oh, yes, we have your reservation right here, but we don't have any minivans left. She said, how can that be? She said, I reserved this kind of car weeks ago. I said, oh, I know, but we have a new staff member on this morning. He forgot to read and back and forth they went. Patty, when I left, they were still arguing. And it was because the employee kept using a word, and this word creates conflicts. You know what the word is?
I think I do, because I've read the book. It begins with B.
It starts with a B. It's 3 letters, the word but. It is. And now just listen. Well, I hear what you're saying, but we tried that before and it didn't work out. I'm sorry that happened, but it's not my fault. You did a good job on that, but you forgot to put in I know it's important to you, but do you hear how the word but makes it an either or, right, wrong conversation? If everyone watching just does this one thing when they're about to say, but, well, I'd like to help you, but, oh, see how that word but means I really don't want to help you, right? I'm sorry that happened, but I'm really not sorry that happened. Over in the right-hand column, put the word and. I'm sorry that happened, and thank you for bringing it to my attention. You're right. You did reserve a minivan, and we're out, and we'd like to upgrade you to the. Do you see how the word and bridges to what we're going to do next? The word but blocks communication and anchors it in an argument. The word and advances conversations. So that's one. You want another one?
Yes, please.
Okay. Now you talked about kids, Patty. How old are your kids?
Oh, I have a boy who's 12 and a daughter who's 14, going to be 15.
Okay. All right. Now, we just used a work example. Let's use a personal example. So if you read my books, you know that I like to start with a story, a real life example to show how we do this on a daily basis. And then we unpack what doesn't work and what does. So here's the situation. I'm visiting my son, Andrew, in New York, and his 1-year-old son, Hero, crawls across the floor, hauls himself up on a guitar, and starts banging on the strings. Now, Andrew could have yanked that guitar away. He could have said no. He could have said, stop banging on the guitar. And guess what? All of that makes it worse. So the second situation is when someone makes a mistake or when someone's doing something wrong. In the middle, put the word no, stop, because the word stop running around the pool, guess what they're going to keep doing? Run around the pool. Stop teasing your sister. What are they going to keep doing? Teasing their sister, right? Patty, he said one word. Do you know what it was?
I would love to know.
He said gentle. And I saw Hero's face transform in front of me. And he reached back to the guitar. He went strum. And in that moment, Hero made music. And it was because Andrew told him what to start doing instead of what to stop doing. He shaped his behavior instead of shaming his behavior. As a result, Hero learned from that situation instead of losing face over that situation because Andrew was being a coach instead of a critic. So if you're taking notes, put in the middle column, stop. Stop interrupting me. Stop being late. Stop forgetting to feed the dog, etc., which makes it worse. We're coming across as a critic and we are shaming what they're doing wrong. Over on the right, put the word start. Now we're shaping behavior instead of shaming it. We're coaching them how to do it right instead of criticizing them for doing it wrong. As a parent, as a leader, as a project manager, if we also do this one thing, now we are treating people with respect and they are a lot more likely to change their behavior instead of resenting us for making them feel bad.
Nice. Even today, my son has got a friend around and they keep bouncing the ball outside against the wall. I feel like to say to them, stop doing that, but I'm going to try and change my language a little bit now. So I'll definitely take that tip.
Patty, and now in the book, we have lots of different words. I'm not saying never say this, always say this. I'm saying here are options that are probably going to give better results. So let's go back to they're hitting the ball up against the wall. And a 60-second story from my favorite film that my sons and I used to watch when they were growing up. It's called The Snowman. And I know it's international. It's got the most beautiful music, but the mother's in the kitchen doing the dishes and her kids are outside playing in the snow and they start throwing snowballs and they miss and they hit the kitchen window. And the mother opens the window and leans out and we're expecting her to say, don't do that anymore. Stop throwing stuff. Do you know what she says? Do something else. Look at that, Patty. They're hitting the balls against the wall. Just say, do something else. Do you see? That gives them the autonomy to think, not this, and then I'm open. I have options to do something else. So instead of scolding them and, oh, she's no fun, she's always telling me, no, we're giving them options about changing their behavior.
Oh, I like that. It's almost like an invitation to then explore other things, which I really love, rather than just a brick wall that says, that's it. Stop that thing. But you're not really giving them other options. And then they're thinking, well, I'm quite enjoying this, so I'm going to carry on. Or why can't I carry on?
That's right. Do you see how the stop language is controlling language, right? And controlling and shaming language. And instead of thinking, yeah, this isn't right, they're thinking, why are you getting on my case? Why are you giving me a bad time? Why are you always, see, it sets up all of these words in the middle, set up resentment and resistance. And the words on the right really shift it to respect, rapport, receptivity, so that words matter, don't they, Patty?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm thinking about in an office environment, especially, I remember when I was in the early days of my career, and I used to really take it to heart when a manager might come along and they weren't so happy with my work, or they may have meant it in an innocent way to say, hey, scrap that. Let's not do that. And I'd take it to heart and it was seen as a negative. And in my mind, I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe the work I'm putting out there isn't to the quality it needs to be. But I think often it wasn't meant in that way. And so words can be really powerful and we don't always realize the impact they have on others.
See, I'm so glad you're bringing this up. Let's go into our next situation and let's put order, right? It's like we're the boss or we're the parent and we need to tell people what to do, right? Here's the thing though. Patty, do you know anyone who likes to be ordered around?
No.
Oh, so see, in the middle, put the words you have to or you need to. Because often when we're in charge of something, it's like, well, you need to get this in by the end of the day. Well, you need to talk to so and so about that. It's like, well, you need to call that client back and explain those words you need to, you have to. As you say, we're not trying to be bossy or controlling. It's just often we think it's our job to tell our employees what they need to do. In a meeting, we tell them what they need to do to fix this, to prevent this, etc. However, those words, you need to, you have to, people internally are thinking, you're not the boss of me, even if we are. Right? So put those words, you need to, you have to in the middle. Now, over on the right, please put the words, could you please, or if you would. Now, I did workshops for a very large medical center. And 2 years after I did this training, I walked in. The woman at the reception desk recognized me from the training, and there was no one in the lobby. And she beckoned me over and she pointed to the words to lose, words to use reminder card that I had passed out that was still taped to her desk. And she said, Sam, I'm the first point of contact. They hired me because I'm friendly. And she said, I never used to understand why people were so rude to me when I was so nice to them. And then I took your workshop and I realized I use all those words in the middle all the time. Like, well, you need to talk to your doctor about that. I can't answer that. Well, you need to take this to the pharmacist and tell them what other prescriptions you're taking. Well, you need to, take this to the lab and she said, I was ordering people around from the second they walked in the door. Now it's like, if you could please ask your doctor that, she will be able to, if you could please take this to the lab and get the results. And then if you could please let the pharmacist know. Do you see how the words on the right treat people with courtesy? The words in the middle are commands.
Yeah, no, 100%. And nobody teaches us this, though. This is the thing. Like when we're growing up, as we were talking about, their parents use that negative language because they're trying to create order in the house. And so it's really difficult to role model someone because you find it really difficult to see anyone that's actually role modeling these behaviors. How can you get more inspiration from those around you if they're not demonstrating these behaviors?
I love that question. Hey, guess what? We go first. It is that I know from experience because now both of my sons have their sons. And like Andrew did with Hero, he modeled what to say instead of what not to say. And boy, Patty, I remember a woman put her hand up in my session and she said, Sam, I'm an English teacher. She said, I've been teaching that but is a conjunction for 25 years. She said, it wasn't until today I realized it's not a conjunction. It doesn't join sentences. She said, exactly what you said. Why aren't we taught this in school? And that's why I'm a woman on a mission. That's why I love to speak at conventions, do workshops for companies, is because people have an OMG moment. It's like, oh my goodness. I think of all the relationships where I wondered why people were upset with me. Well, it's because I was telling them what to do. I was using, well, I know we said we get it to today, but there's been a. And so shall we talk about another situation? Because as you said, this has the ability to improve every single relationship we're in. That's not an overstatement. It really does, whether it's someone we meet in public, whether it is a family member, whether it is someone we don't get along with on a committee or a project. When we use these words, they're a lot more likely to respond in kind, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. So there's almost a form of influence here as well, rather than it just being a mechanism of communication. Would that be correct?
I just love your question. See, it's not just a form of influence. What I know is that if we are brilliant at what we do and we're not good at this, we're not going to get the promotions we deserve, right? I have a son who works at NASA and he is an engineer, very left brain. And he reads his mother's book because he realizes if I go in and I'm competing, he works in mission control at Johnson Space Center for NASA. And so, see, he is technically brilliant. Although my son Tom would tell you that he needed to get better at these communication and social skills because at a high level, if your team, for some reason, they've been putting in long weeks and we point out the one thing they do wrong instead of acknowledging all the things they did right, they're dragging their feet, aren't they? And when it's time to select someone for a promotion or a project, they're not going to pick the person who annoys the people around them or the people around them don't feel seen or heard or respected. So you are right that getting good at this is not just good for everyone we deal with. It really will determine our career success.
Got it. Right. I'm really raring to go on this next scenario you mentioned. So I've got my next post-it note ready.
Okay. So the next one is we have to tell someone no. Someone makes a request and we have to turn it down. And now guess what the words are in the middle? Can't because. Can we get this meeting started? Well, no, we can't because we don't have a quorum yet. Can I go ahead and move forward with this project? Well, no, you can't because it still hasn't been approved through accounting and the budget. It's like, can I talk to so-and-so? No, you can't. They're out on vacation this week. Those words can't because are like a verbal door slamming in someone's face. They will resent us because they feel we're blocking them from what it is they want. Now, guess what? Over on the right, put the words can as soon as. Yes, you can talk with Bob as soon as he gets back from vacation. He'll be back on Monday. Do you want to leave a message? Call back. What works better for you? Yes, we can start the meeting as soon as we have a quorum. And if we don't have a quorum in 5 minutes, we're going to start anyway and record it so that now there was let's go back to a personal situation. There was a mother in an audience and her whole face, Patty, was shifting. And I said, so what's going on? She said, this is going to change the way I parent. She said, Sam, I'm a single mom. I have 3 kids under the age of 10. It seems like all I ever do is tell them no. Can I play with my friends? No, you can't. You haven't done your chores. Mom, can I watch TV? No, you can't because you haven't done your homework. And she says she would do something called stacking. Stacking is when we don't just use one of these words, we use all of them. Like, it's like, you should have told me. It's like, no, you can't because. So she said, think of the difference. Instead of saying, no, you can't play with your friends because you haven't done your chores. Patty, how would we turn that around?
Instead of saying, no, you can't, we said, you can as soon as.
Of course. Yes, you can play with your friends as soon as you finish your chores. Yes, you can watch TV right after you do your homework. Finish your math. Let me have a look. Now, she was the one who said, Sam, this isn't semantics. This changes the whole dynamic of the relationship. And see, Patty, that's right. Because when we tell people no, once again, they perceive we are the one blocking them from what it is they want. When we say, yes, you can, as soon as, who's in charge of getting what it is they want?
It reminds me of a session I went to at a conference once, and the guy said, don't think of a pink unicorn. That's exactly what we're thinking about. And it's that same point that when you tell someone don't do something, we're going to do it. And so rather than that, if you can rephrase that into a different sentence, then I think it can really create a different type of experience for people.
So I am so glad you brought that up. Let's bring up a different situation where we're trying to teach someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be as a parent, and it could be, Patty, do either of your kids play sports?
Yeah, both. But my son's just crazy about lots of sports at the moment. Yeah, he seems to be trying every single sport he can until he like figures one that he's half decent at. And I think he might just stick with that.
Well, let's talk about ourselves in sports and let's talk about our kids in sports as well, because this is where a lot of this language, especially in the heat of the moment, we often go to these words in the middle, which once again makes it worse. So do you play tennis or do your kids play tennis by any chance?
A little bit. I'm not the best, but I used to love playing it as a kid, for sure.
Well, I had the privilege of working with Rod Laver, Grand Slam champion Rod Laver on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. And so we used to put on national tennis camps. And one time, Rocket wanted to thank me for putting in some long hours. And he said, you want to hit? Well, do I want to hit with Rod Laver? That's a rhetorical question. So we're playing. I tell you, Patty, he's making me work for it. He's running me right, running me left, running me back. And he throws up a weak lob. If I just put away this overhead, I am going to take a point off Rocket. Well, in my eagerness, I committed the cardinal sin of overheads. I pulled my head down, right? I instead of keeping my eyes on the ball, I looked where I was going to put the ball.
Right.
Well, I mishit the ball. I missed the ball, Patty. So, and I lost it. I'm embarrassed to say. It's like, what a stupid mistake. I know better than that. You should have kept your head down. It's like, don't take your eyes off, etc. Now, Rocket's known for sportsmanship, and he waited for me to calm down. And then he went like this, and he said, Sam, he said, champions never use the word don't, and they never use the word should. I should have kept my eyes on the ball. Don't pull your head down. Don't hit off your back foot. Don't drop the ball. I always remember when my sons were playing Little League Baseball, it came down to last inning. Tom was coming up and the coach came over and put his arm around Tom and he said, whatever you do, don't swing at the high ones. I thought, oh no, how can you? Don't swing. Guess what he did? Swing, swing. Because as you said, he thinking swing at the high ones, right?
Yeah.
So instead of don't, no, do wait for your pitch. Do wait for one across the middle of the plate. Do hang on the ball. Do step into the ball. Do, is like fill their mind. Do you have a dog by any chance, Patty?
Oh, wow. Yes, Sam, you absolutely have read my mind. We bought a dog last year. He's just turned 1.5, so he's a little puppy.
We had a little Jack Russell, and I took him to dog obedience training. Well, JR was so excited to see all these new buddies. He just started barking, and he wouldn't stop barking. Guess what I did, Patty? I yelled at him, don't bark, just stop barking. And thank heaven the trainer, who was like a little Yoda, came over and he said, yelling at a barking dog just makes him think, great, now we're both barking. So I hope that people remember the next time they're trying to teach someone something, if they're saying, whatever you do, don't do that. Like, don't put too much information on your slides at work. Don't wait for everybody to show up before you start. Don't run long. Think about how many times we tell people what we don't want, which means they're thinking about and doing the very thing we don't want. Instead, know, what do we want to do? Fill our mind with that. And of course, it's a lot more likely to produce the desired behavior instead of the dreaded behavior.
Oh, I love that. And I totally get you on the dog barking thing, because that's exactly what our dog's doing at the moment. He's just seeing some animal flying across the street and he'll be barking his head off. And all of us are on his back. Don't stop them. What are you doing? And he just carries on.
And think even about the words, because you talked about seeing the unicorn. And once you see something, your mind is focusing on what you're seeing. Think about get off the couch. Wait a minute. The visual word in that is couch, right? So even you're saying get off. However, what they're thinking is couch, right? So on the floor, right? No, once again, once you get good at this, your mind immediately goes to, no, what do I want? What do I want them to start instead of stop? What's the desired behavior instead of the dreaded? Now they're seeing what to do. Step into the ball, step into the ball. Instead of don't hit off your back foot, hang on to the ball, hang on to the ball, instead of don't drop the ball. It's like get your first serve in instead of don't double fault. Get rid of that word don't, focus on what you do, and you can really improve your own sports performance, behavior, relationships.
Yeah, I was thinking of a scenario that I think is probably a fairly common one that a lot of us have thought about, but not really figured out how to approach it. If I was looking to get promoted at work or asking the boss for something that I need, how might I approach that situation? It could be either a promotion, it could be I need some time off, but I know it's not going to be an easy conversation.
Well, let's add that to the situation. And this is, we want to get a yes, correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
It's like, make a request. We're going to propose something, pitch something. We want to get a yes. So, you know me, here's a little story, and then we'll talk about what not to do and what to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and now you're talking, I've written books called Got Your Attention that Dan Pink said was the most brilliant book he ever saw about how to turn a no into a yes, and a book called Pop, which is exactly this. So here's the situation. I speak for a lot for YPO and EO, and one of my EO clients several years ago said, Sam, I've got good news and I've got bad news. I said, what's the good news? He said, I'm pitching my app to the CTO of the London Olympics. I said, that's fantastic news. I said, what's the bad news? He said, he said, we only have an hour. And he said, this is very complicated app. I don't think I can really explain it well in an hour. And I said, Mike, you don't have an hour. I said, step number one, put yourself in your decision maker's mind and ask yourself, what are they thinking? And he said, well, he's probably thinking we're 212 days out from the London Olympics. I don't have time for this. I said, guess what you're going to say? You're going to say, you may be thinking, not I know you're thinking, because that's presumptuous, isn't it?
Yeah.
You may be thinking we're 212 days out from the London Olympics. We don't have time for this. Guess what? If we put ourselves in the decision maker's shoes and they think, well, this isn't in our budget. If they're thinking, well, we tried that before and it didn't work. If they're thinking, well, I know you want that, but you don't have the job experience, right? If we don't say their objection, they're not listening to us. They are waiting for us to stop talking so they can tell us no, right?
Yeah.
So step number one is to voice what your decision maker is thinking, in particular, why they will say no. Because if we don't, the answer is already no. They're just waiting for us to stop talking so they can. Now, the next step is use the word and, because if we say, well, I know we don't have money in our budget, but I know we tried this before, but I know I don't have the experience, but now we're arguing with the person we want the yes from, right? So use the word and. Now, third step, make the objection moot. Now, how do we do that? Is that we, like what Mike did with the CTO, he said, I can only imagine you're thinking we're 212 days out from the London Olympics. We don't have time for this. And I can only imagine you think that I've got all these things on my plate. I don't have time for this meeting. So what he said is, and that's why I have distilled my pitch into 10 minutes. He said, at the end of 10 minutes, if you have other priorities, I understand. Richard Branson said, time is the new money. I think time is the new trust. And Patty, people are so busy. The clock starts ticking the second we start talking. And if we don't address time, I know you're busy, and may I have 2 minutes of your time? I know you've got a lot on your plate, and that's why I've distilled this 1 hour meeting into 10-minute agenda. Do you see how today's world, one of the quickest ways to win buy-in is to take less time than they've anticipated, right?
Yeah. You got me thinking about how I worded my initial message to you now, because I'm like, oh my God, I could have worded it so much better. So you've got me all paranoid. I'm going to have to go back and see how I could have improved that request.
Well, and here's the good news is that one last step to turn a no into a yes. Number one, anticipate why they'll say no and say it. 2, bridge with the word and. 3, address time and ask for or take less time than they're anticipating. And step 4 is to introduce a win next. So see, it's not that I want a promotion. It's like you may have seen this in the Talking on Eggshells book, is what's their PIN, PIN. And no, this is the PIN number for their bank account. This is their priorities, their interests, or their needs. So see, it's not that we want the promotion. It's like they want someone they can trust. They want someone who can deliver results. They can want someone who can meet that deadline. They want someone who's going to be able to mobilize the team and get them to pull together. So we ask ourselves, what do they want? Now, how can I share how I can deliver that for them, right? Because that's what they want. It's not that I want the promotion or that I want to be put in charge of the project. No, it's all their pin. And when I identify 3 things that they want and then show how I can help them do that, that's when we start moving that no to a yes.
Oh, I love that. I think for me, that has always been a really tricky conversation because there's just something within me that says, maybe you shouldn't ask this. Maybe you need to hold off, or maybe your manager will instigate that conversation with you. So I shouldn't say anything. So having those tips are really useful to be able to walk in with some structure and some confidence to say, well, actually, this is going to give me the best possible chance of success in this conversation. Thank you for that.
Patty, I'm glad you used the word structure. Is I think one of the reasons Tung Fu is still selling around the world 20 years after it was first published. I think talking on eggshells, why these ideas stick, why people keep the book out. They don't read it and put it away on the shelf or listen to it and then erase it off Audible or whatever. They keep referring to it. And the reason is there are a lot of frameworks and structures. It's not just words to lose and words to use. There's something called a W5 form. And if there is an important interview, if there is an important meeting, if there is a Zoom call, if there's a podcast, I suggest people just take 5 minutes to fill out this W5 form because it will give them a structure to help them walk in, dramatically increase their likelihood of success. Do we have time for a quick success story of that?
Oh, 100%. Yes, I'm all ears.
So I was hired by Cisco to do some training for their learning channel, which is their top 435 executives from around the world. So one of their department heads called me on Wednesday and said he was having a department head all hands meeting on Friday. And would I look at his PowerPoint slides and brainstorm strategize the meeting with him? I said, sure. So after looking at his deck, I asked him, we filled out the W5 form together. And the W5 form is like, so what's the meeting? What's the situation, et cetera? Who's in the room? What's their mood? Why would they say no, right? W is like, where and when is this going to take place? And when I asked him where this was going to take place, it's 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. I said, yikes, they're going to have one foot out the door. And then it's like, why will it be an ROI for them? And I asked him, how do you want your employees to feel at the end of the meeting? Well, Patty, this is a Cisco guy, right? He's a techie. It's like, feel, blink, blink. And I said, yeah. And I said, it takes it's a lot of money to get everyone in off their shifts and so forth. He said, well, I guess I want them to feel proud. We exceeded all our numbers this year. I said, great. What else? He said, well, I guess I want him to be excited. We got a big Q1 coming up. I said, you think you might want to put some pictures of people in your PowerPoint deck? Because see, Patty, he's a Cisco guy, graphs, numbers, statistics, etc. There was not one picture of a human being in that. And well, he was a quick study. So on Thursday, he had the company photographer go around and take pictures of the people who've been working 60 hours a week, take pictures of the person who had identified a flaw, and they were able to catch it and correct it before they shipped. And he said, well, there's one other thing. The last W is, why will it be an ROI for him, right? What does he want to have happen at the end of this that would make it a success in his mind? Well, another thing he did when we talked about where and when is it going to be held, I said, all right, first words out of your mouth. I said, don't take your phone. I said, do you have a watch? He said, sure. I said, the first words out of your mouth, you're going to hold up, you're going to point to your watch. You're going to say, I can only imagine you're thinking, it's 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. These things normally take an hour or two, which puts you right out in the middle of rush hour traffic. He said, I have condensed this to a half an hour. I promise you we're going to be wrapped up by 5 o'clock. Rock and roll, let's go. He said, Sam, at the end of this, people were walking around high-fiving each other. Normally, it's like over, everyone rushes for the door. He said, they were walking around. I didn't know you did that. Congratulations. And it was because he did his W-5 form. So see, what I'm hoping is that people get a copy of Tongue Fu, get a copy of Talking on Eggshells. What is something they really care about coming up? What do they want a yes to? Do they want that promotion or position? Do they want a business partner? Do they want someone to fund their cause or their startup? Just even spend 5 minutes on that in advance. It's going to dramatically help you come up with the words to say that will actually increase receptivity and increase the likelihood that you get a yes instead of a no.
Wow. It's just such practical advice. And I've never had a guest giving so many practical tips in one episode. So I do really appreciate you sharing all of those with us, Sam. And I know we're fast approaching time. Before we wrap up, I'd love to ask you one of my favorite questions, which is if you could have any superpower in the world to abolish something in the world of work, and we'll do it for 24 hours because I like to do a trial or a pilot just in case everything goes wrong. What would that be for you?
Now, Patty, you know me. In the middle column, put abolish, what we don't want in the work world. Over in the right-hand column, put honor. Because see, Patty, part of what we're talking about is we never just talk about what we don't want or what's not working, right? We immediately, as you said, we set an example, and that is we always shift people to be proactive, not reactive. We always shift to what we do want. And so what I want to abolish is that people are rude, that people are thoughtless, and they get upset when they take their anger out on other people. They take their frustration or impatience out on other people. So I want to abolish that. And what I want to honor is that we treat people with respect. We ask ourselves, how can I say this in a way that moves us forward? How can I say this in a way that shapes behavior instead of shames it? How can I say this in a way that I'm a coach instead of a critic? How can I say this in a way that I'm modeling integrity and compassion so this person chooses to respond in kind? So what I want to abolish is rudeness, and what I want to honor is respect.
Oh, I love that. I might have to now change my phrasing of that question. So I'm going to include the honor part of it. I think that's a brilliant addition. And Sam, if people want to get hold of you and get some further insights from you, how can they do that? And also, if you'd just like to summarize those books for us again, because I know you've written a lot. So which books would you recommend if people want to continue their learning journey?
Okay. Well, first, thank you. I really hope people follow me on LinkedIn. My life is my lab, and I ink it when I think it. So like this, I'll think about, okay, what is one thing we talked about I haven't written about recently, and I'll write about it on LinkedIn so that I am leveraging what I'm saying in a way that it will hopefully reach and make a difference for more people. So my name is Sam Horn. They can find me on LinkedIn. Hope they follow me and get even more ideas and suggestions. And they can also go to my website, which is samhorn.com, SAMHORN. I've got all my different books there, from Talking on Eggshells to Tongue Fu to Some Days Not a Day in the Week. I also have my TEDx talk there, which has like why never again to give another elevator speech. And I have inspiring quotes about my consulting services and speaking. So I hope they'll check that out as well and find it useful, and that it really does help them think about how can I show up and model the kind of behavior that I hope people treat me with, and I'm going to go first.
Oh, brilliant. And I will add those links to the show notes as well, so people can get hold of those without having to remember them. And also, please do that when you're not driving so that you don't have any accidents. So thank you for that, Sam. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you over these last 45 minutes or so. And I really do appreciate all of your advice, all of those practical tips. I'm certainly going to be taking these away and practicing them. I had my little post-it note thing here, and I was writing all of those down as you were talking. So I'm going to start applying these immediately. So thank you once again, Sam.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Katharine Graham of the Washington Post said, to do what you love and feel that it matters, how could anything be more fun? Well, I get to do meaningful work. I get to do it with people I enjoy and respect. Does it get better than that, Patty?
Honestly, you're living the dream, and I wish I was on that same path, or I'm trying to get on that path, but I'm still a long way off yet. But it's so good to see someone who's absolutely flying. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's the end of another episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please do connect with me via LinkedIn and drop me a message and let me know your favorite takeaways from the episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Superpower School newsletter so that you can be notified of all future episodes. Simply visit the website www.superpowers.school. Thank you once again.